I think that we've come to some kind of crossroads. Effectively, is that it's a difference between, well, it's how high is your risk tolerance, because if you don't have a high risk tolerance, you're conservative, then you have to play it conservatively, and you're going to have conservative revenues. Like, let's say Subway has conservative revenues, I would, but if you then take what you have and are willing to risk it and willing for that to go to zero and polarize your messaging, you have a chance of maybe 10xing your business or going to zero. But you have to be willing to risk it, and then you have to be willing to have haters.
Absolutely. I saw, and I don't want to go to the point of disgusting. There was a TikTok. So I was doing research on AC repair videos. There was this TikTok video, and it was funny. They used these two dogs, and the title of the TikTok video, like little headline of it, was "The customers forgot we were in the attic," and it had like one dog, and another dog it said the HVAC technician. Another dog under him it said apprentice, and they have these like crazy looking. You know, how dogs look crazy. Their eyes and they look like so. These dogs looking at each other, they're looking at each other with these crazy looks. And downstairs, the husband and the wife are arguing. You hear this audio, and it is raunchy. Like they're getting in an argument, and then she talks about how he enjoyed something very vulgar that she did to him the other night. And then he starts yelling like, "You weren't supposed to bring that up." And then these dogs looking at each other all crazy, like and it's very, very vulgar, right? Very profane. But that shit had a million something views. A local HVAC company had the balls to put that out and got a million something views. Anti-branding.
But how are their sales?
Oh
Did
hell, I
you?
don't know. I have no clue.
Yeah, it's a scary thing to do. I think, to be polarizing. I'm thinking about the clients that we serve on behalf of the clients of the agency, the customers that they serve, and I mean some brands more than others, but and depending on your industry, it's just a risky move because I mean you don't know. Maybe there's some market research would would be valuable here because if it turns out that you're for that HVAC example, it turns out not 90% of customers don't actually would never want to hear anything like that. They would leave you a bad review just for hearing your ad, and it's going to drive your business to the ground. Or it could turn out that half the people actually really do want to hear something like that. They're looking for something different, and maybe in that case it's worth the risk. In whatever small business you run, HVAC, restaurant, I mean, and local is a whole different ball game than online or nationwide. Different
Yeah.
type of marketing. Local, you have, it's like in local you actually have a big advantage because you can relate, like we were talking about with Mattress Matt. He relates to that specific city. Houston, he's talking about Houston
Yeah.
and that rap stuff. So
You he said something that made me think of this. Let's go back to what we talked about where we opened it up with fast food chains and their branding and how they look. And if you look at your typical, let's say, McDonald's video, it'll or McDonald's commercial, they might range depending on whatever their whatever the season is, whatever the marketing campaign is, but it's generally a corporate happier type of marketing campaign. There was a burger place called Carl's Jr. Whatever it is, like here in the Texas area. I have never ever had Carl's Jr. in my entire life, but they're around here in the Texas area, and I'm not sure wherever else. And they had these commercials, right? So you'd have this McDonald's commercial, and it might be family orientated, talking about some kind of Happy Meal campaign they had going on, right? And then the Carl's Jr. commercial would come up, and it would be this woman, this hot woman in a bikini, everything fake, with a hamburger that probably weighs more than her. Some skinny hot woman, whatever, eating, and it was all sex with hamburgers. That sounded really weird. I didn't mean sex with hamburgers. I'm saying they're selling sex while they're selling hamburgers. So, anyways, I wonder how that did. Like that was, I mean, that had to be polarizing. Your person who's eating Chick-fil-A, who's down with Chick-fil-A closing on a Sunday and not supporting gay stuff. Then they see this commercial that's highly sexualized with a woman eating a hamburger. Bet they didn't feel the best about that or had the best things to say about it. But I wonder how that worked for Carl's Jr. That was a bit of a ballsy play in my opinion.
Hmm. That was a pretty ballsy commercial. I do remember what you're talking about, and I think they even did a Super Bowl ad, and yeah, it's really just selling burgers through sex, right? And I don't know how it did because they stopped running those commercials. So
They
I would
did.
assume either they weren't allowed to run that anymore, or it didn't work out. I've also never eaten at Carl's Jr. It's also apparently the same restaurant as Hardee's, depending on where you are in the country, called Hardee's or Carl's Jr. Um, yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to get some more of these stats. But in the meantime, here I'm finding I found this a few examples, and they're saying like, why does Coke beat Pepsi most of the time, even though both are huge companies? And like I think we talked about in an episode, Pepsi's actually catching up as a company. But when we're just talking about the actual Coca Cola versus Pepsi Cola, I think 8 times out of 10 people prefer Coke. And is that a marketing thing or is that an actual product thing? There's a bunch of like Wendy's, Where's the Beef, Budweiser's What's Up, you could say are classic ads that actually worked.
Yeah, that they did. And I mean, yeah, like that's the safe route. And when it lands, it lands. Like the Pepsi, I mean, the Bud Light, what's up? That'll, if you were, around at that time and you remember, if you were old enough, that what's up commercial is classic. You'll never forget that. So when it hits, it really hits. Um, I just still lean towards the anti-branding. I wish Caesars would lean into it. Your pizza fucking sucks, Caesars, and you know it. That's shitty pizza. It's really cheap. It's not good at all. Um, and they don't play off of quality ingredients. Their commercials are entertaining. They're entertaining enough. Like I have to give them that. They do a pretty good job. What if they really leaned into it? Like, the hot and ready. Is it good? It's hot and ready. Quality ingredients? It's hot and ready. Like, what? Just lean into it. Lean into it, man.
Oh, that is funny, but it's man, it's so risky. And,
Yeah,
and actually, speaking of the Budweiser and the Bud Light thing that blew up in their face in a big way, they went on a huge risk. So it seemed, at least from the outside. I don't know. Like they went on that risk with the transgender stuff, and they just absolutely got the wrong response,
that
and
was
they
dumb.
fell. They dropped from the number one spot to who knows where they are now, in three or something. Like they took the risk, and it did not work.
What do you think of that move?
I can't picture that move being a profits driven move. I think that was a some kind of values narrative culture driven move that where somebody did it without revenues and profits being the number one goal.
I think that that wasn't that's you got to know your audience too, right? So if you're going to anti-brand, like Chick-fil-A can't anti they Chick-fil-A can anti-brand in the Chick-fil-A way, conservative values, that type of stuff. They could do that because that's their audience. Chick-fil-A can't come out and say, "Hey, Dylan, whatever her name was that Budweiser picked." Um, Chick-fil-A can't go out and hire her to do Chick-fil-A commercials because they will lose their base the same way Bud Light did. So, like, yeah, anti-brand in whatever way is fitting towards your customer, towards your demographic. I think that Bud Light had to know. I mean, come on, it's not about the LGBT community isn't synonymous with Bud Light. Like I know gay guys love Celine Dion, or the ones that are my age used to, right? So then maybe you get Celine Dion, but you don't get Trump to be a mascot for that community.
That'd be a cool mashup. Trump, Celine Dion. Um, have you ever heard of that? I, these such funny mashups that happen on YouTube where they'll take clips from hundreds of different speeches that Trump makes and kind of make a song out of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
it's
so
pretty
fun.
entertaining. Yeah.
Okay, so what it sounds like is like you gotta take a stand, get your base, and once you have your base, you gotta stick with them. You're pretty much a slave to your base at that point.
Yes. Lean into it, man.
Okay, well, um, I guess the how do we apply, or how would you change any, or would you change anything about how you do marketing, whether it's for your agency or for your clients, or how would you recommend people with small businesses, whether they're local or online, if they don't have an established brand yet, they're still trying to get footing, what should they do?
It's exactly what you just said. It's, you find your base and lean into it. If you're a marketing agency and you are getting clients, you look at your client, the owner, whoever you're talking to. Um, typically, they're going to have, typically, the base is going to mimic their values. Not always, right? But in a lot of cases, the client you hire or whatever is going to have a certain demographic. And then once you know that demographic, once you know their values, you can lean into that to the point of excluding people who don't agree. And that's exactly what you'd want to do. So I think it all comes down to, like, this is basic marketing stuff that we all forget. This is the fundamentals. These are shooting free throws over and over again, doing layups over and over again. In our case, it's knowing your avatar, or knowing your client's avatar. And once you know that, lean into it. Really lean into it.